it's a journey. This life is not about the things we acquire, but it's about the experiences we create for ourselves and for others. A life lived is one of purpose and meaning.
If you want to lead a purposeful life, you need to have a worldview.
Be true to yourself.
I don't know if I'm in that place to know my identity. I'm still learning who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm doing it for. At one point, you're going to see the full circle.
Enjoy every moment. You have to be real.
Change needs to come from within.
Don't be afraid to ask as well. The more you give, the more you get.
We are better and stronger when we are together.
Hallelujah to that.
Thank you once again. And as we were talking about learnerization, it's a journey. And this dear friend of mine, who at least her last two things, her last moments were living a dream, but she also had spent her last day worrying about a material possession, her wallet. And that really came home to me that this life is not about the things we acquire, but it's about the experiences we create for ourselves and for others, impact that we have. And so on this learnerization journey that we're all on, we seem to recognize that all of us are learning, whether we like it or not, in groups and on our own. What are those ingredients that make a life a learnerized life, that helps a learner connect with their purpose? Connecting the dots of all the things we've talked about, identity and goals and ambitions and group and motivations. What are your thoughts on these things? How do we connect all of these elements so that a life lived is one of purpose and meaning and creates true learning?
So I think it's essential for people to realize, first and foremost, no matter what their vocation and what their skill set and what they want to do in life, if you want to lead a purposeful life, you need to have a worldview. It might be a completely atheistic worldview, well, so be it. And it might be a worldview of a man of faith with all the different diversity that faith comes with. But you need a worldview, because the worldview gives you your bearings. It tells you where you are. And just like the ancients taught us, you cannot have a perfect circle without the dot in the middle of the circle, because that's the starting point of a circle. You cannot have a life worth living without a meaningful worldview. And it's that worldview which eventually leads you to connect all the dots in a meaningful way. Because sometimes we tend to connect dots, but we're not very sure how we are making those connections. The worldview helps you in doing that. And it's a big word, but essentially it's about you deciding where you stand, where you want to be, and what are the various paths available to you to make that journey.
For me, it is identity. Identity. Who are you? You see, and when you really think about this, you see, you go back to what Shakespeare said in Hamlet. Shakespeare said, "To thyself be true." So be true to yourself. What are your values? What do you want out of this life? What do you want for the future? So think about this. Don't be schizophrenic about this. You see, so the question of identity is very central to this process. All right. So be true to yourself and understand that.
I think, honestly, to be very transparent, I don't know if I'm in a position. I know that story kind of struck me as well. And I'm sorry to hear about that, but I don't know. To be very transparent, I don't know if I'm in that place to know my identity yet, or to know what my worldview is. I mean, I'm still learning it. I'm still learning who I am and what I'm doing it for. But I know it's not for a paycheck, and that matters, right? Because if I do it for a paycheck, what I'm gonna get in return is a paycheck. What I'm get of an outcome, it's just that. But if I'm doing it for something different,
Mm.
and it doesn't have to be, again, as you said, spiritual or not, doesn't have to follow an ideology, but I think what helps me is to take life step by step and what its present moment means. So right now I'm doing this podcast because I feel like it's adding to me as an identity. It's helping me ask all the difficult questions and it's helping me branch myself out there. It's getting me out of my comfort to speak out. And another part of me is like, I go to my office, to my work, and I do it for another reason because I believe that design is transformative and I believe it has effects. And I think just taking life step by step is as real as I can get. I don't know if I've kind of formulated all my ideas around what the purpose is, what the mission is, and I know that's what we've been speaking about. But I know that, doing things step by step is, and I do also believe that at one point, you're going to see the full circle. And whether you see it or not, honestly, doesn't matter. What matters is that you're doing something with the integrity and the passion and the moral ethics, and you'll reap what you give.
Mhm.
And when you do it in a group setting, when you connect the dots, of so much, I mean, we've covered so many. We said empowerment, we said connecting dots of outside the classroom, we said connecting dots of so many other aspects that we've explored in all these episodes. And I think it's integrating some of these of a learning journal, taking life step by step, I think helps.
What you're all saying here are really different aspects of a continuum,
Mm.
which I see learnerization as coming across. So, on the one hand, we start off with, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want yet. And that question could be posed when you're just starting your journey, or when you're midway, or maybe towards the end. Existential questions, but fundamental questions of what it means to be a human nonetheless, regardless of your worldview, whether it's religious or not religious. An identity is always there.
Mhm.
Who am I? What am I? So what you're really talking about when we talk about empowerment and connection, is an awareness is about individuals in a group that can ask those questions safely and comfortably, and maybe not have all the answers, maybe not have any of the answers, but at least have those questions. And to me, that's really powerful in learnerization, because what I see in current education is that a lot of those answers are already formulated for people. And it's just a question of planting them into those people or writing them on their forehead. But what is that? That's not empowerment. So that takes me to my next question. If a learner is on that continuum towards discovering or embracing a worldview and living towards it, having an identity, revising an identity, reinventing an identity, just figuring out what it's all about. How do they keep accountable? How do they keep learning? What are your thoughts?
I think is about the awareness, and also the capacity to celebrate that process. So be aware, celebrate, and enjoy every moment. You see, so moment to moment, and in that process, going back to what Ayo said, you have to be real. You see, so to be real is also to really think about the identity question. You see, who are you? See, or what's the point of all this, right? You see, so the question of awareness, question of celebration, and the question of keeping it real. Yeah.
Who asks that question and who keeps a learner accountable? Is it asked from the self or is it asked from an instructor? What do you guys think? Who keeps the accountability in this process? Everything that you said, Akeem, made perfect sense to me. But the question is, who keeps those questions central? Is it the learner? Is it the instructor? So that that authenticity can be experienced, lived, transmitted, who keeps that learnerization process active?
I think it's both. It's an instructor, it's a student, and I think it goes beyond that even. I think it's people that you keep around you. I think that's a basic answer.
Mhm.
But the people that you keep around you in the communities that you build, and whether you like it or not, all your friend groups are groups in every aspect of your life, whether it's personal, whether it's at work, whether it's in an actual project that you define it by groups. You have groups around you. Person does not exist on its own. There's so many different, they exist together. And that idea of collective, and the idea that who keeps you accountable, the people around you, but also yourself. It needs to come from yourself. It needs to be a two-way conversation and a two-way co-creation. And I think motivation, encouragements, and celebration of those little milestones is really important as well.
And going back to that, you see, when you really think about this, you see, you think about the process, and we shouldn't get the impression that the process is going to be perfect all the time. It's going to be straightforward. I think we also have to realize that this can also be zigzag. You see, there can be a little bit of eruptions and interruptions in the process.
I'm going to turn to you in a moment, Mohammed, but I want to pick up on those 2 points. So on the one hand, interruption can happen.
Precisely.
You talked about the power of a group and friend groups. And then my head went immediately to the idea of socialization and how gangs are groups
Mhm.
and people learn how to steal and harm people, right? It's a form of learning, right? It goes back to why we're learning and what we're learning. And this idea of autonomy, identity, morality, worldview helps perhaps an individual to reframe and say, well, in this group, I'm learning things that don't honor what I really want or need in life. They're not really a legacy that I will be proud of 5, 10, 20 years from now. And then the strength to be able to redefine your group, remove yourself and find another group that nurtures you more or takes you in a direction you want to go in. Mohammed, any thoughts?
I think there's little to add to what Akin and Aya just said. But uh, any change that needs to be brought around and brought about has to happen to the person himself or herself. Change needs to come from within. And that change needs to be coupled with mindfulness. You talked about awareness, Akin. Mindfulness. To be mindful of where do you want to get to, what are the resources that are available to you, how do you use them, and you utilize every possible source of knowledge to learn how to utilize those tools to help you getting. And like you said, Aya, it's the individual himself or herself, it's the people around them, it's the community, it's the learning community around you. All that has a very, very uh, pertinent role to play in ensuring that you can make this journey.
Wow. As I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking about the role of what I'll call the traditional instructor as some kind of mentor, dare I say it, veteran learner who's gone through those questions of who I am, why I'm here, what am I doing. Not necessarily have all the answers, maybe have way more questions than answers. I know that's true of myself, but at least have started that process and bringing my learners to that conversation for themselves and allowing them the space to explore those answers and connect with each other, harness the gifts and talents that they have, learn from each other's visions. What is possible? And that way, when I'm long gone, my learners will continue to learn in a meaningful and powerful way. So as we're wrapping this up, what would be one thought or one suggestion you might give to our audience, whether it's a learner in the student form or a learner in the instructor form or a learner in the broad frame of the institution? One thing that somebody could do to move forward on this learnerization path, on this journey, to promote it?
So you need to understand that you can encourage your students. It's important to encourage your students. So when we get into the final weeks, you tell them to hang in there, don't give up. But students can also encourage one another. So it shouldn't be a one-way traffic. So let's have let's have a sense of collectivity here. So it's not just from the instructor, it's also coming from the students. It's coming from the community. You see, and that's the way I look at it.
So community and that support for each other
Mm-hmm.
in all directions.
Precisely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think give and don't be afraid to ask as well, right? To ask questions, to inquire, to dig deeper, and to give back. And I think also another point is I really want to touch on the point of encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the things you do may be uncomfortable, but when you have the right support system, just like, by the way, this podcast, the right support system, the right producers behind that kind of give you that space of comfort, but they also call you out when they feel like something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that space that's kind of got happening is encouragement, right? It makes you more comfortable to be able to continue doing your best and to give. And when value is given to one, it's reciprocated. And I think the more you give, the more you get.
Oh yes. Hallelujah to that.
Muhammad, thoughts?
Yeah, I had just mentioned asking questions. And I remember reading that you wouldn't have had a Plato if there was no Socrates. You talked about Socrates in the first episode, Rob. And I think that's the fundamental thing. Learn to ask the questions. And to add to that, find the encouragement or provide the encouragement to the instructors and more so to the students and the place and the space
Mm-hmm.
to ask all the right questions. And like you said, Rob, no question is a wrong question. I think that's where it needs to start.
Wow. I am so blown away by all of your answers, your heart and your commitment to learning, and this amazing spirit. Like, I feel like I'm falling in love with learning again through you. And that's happening in group. That's happening because we're connecting. We are the dots that we're connecting. And it goes back to that whole idea of community. We are better and stronger when we are together, supporting and really rooting for each other, encouraging each other, learning from each other, learning about each other. Learnerization is that beautiful synergistic process. And thank you for co-creating that with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today's episode, I'm excited about our future conversations, which will be a deep dive into specific elements of modern education that are required by most, if not all, educational institutions that we can explore as opportunities to learnerize, working from assessment, syllabus, learning outcomes, exams, project work, the gamut of what we call modern education, including technology. So we'll have opportunities to look at more specific cases of learnerization to move from theory to reality. Thank you again.
Inshallah.